we're very pleased about the progress that we're making. I know that I live rent-free in the president's head, and I wish he would spend some time in Chicago so that he could see what a lovely city we have.
Governor, quick follow-up. What do you do if the National Guard is activated and comes here?
If Black Lives Matter, how come in the past 11 days, since President Trump has federalized the D.C. Metro Police, no black individual has been unalived? I'm going to say that again. How come in the past 11 days, no black person has been unalived in D.C. since President Trump has taken over the D.C. Metro Police? There's a stat that says in the past 7 years in D.C. that black people are 112 times more likely to be unalived than white people. So if Black Lives Matter, the left, Democrats, progressives, how come you all are not celebrating that no black person has been unalived in the past 11 days in D.C. since Trump took over?
Steve Miller, please say a few words.
Thank you, sir. So just to, first of all, follow up on what the Vice President said, no police officer working in the city can remember a time in their lives when there has been no murders. You can work at the police department for 20 years, 30 years, your whole life. We've checked the records. No one can even find a record of being murder-free for as long as we've been murder-free under President Trump's leadership.
Boy. So we got to talk about the Democrats panicking over the Trump crime crackdown coming to a liberal city near you, okay? Because President Trump has decided that he may or may not use the military in order to try to crack down on crime in these liberal cities that we know is out of control. And they made some very, very, very major announcements at the White House, including about how President Trump signed an executive order to end cashless bail, okay, to attempt to do so, to put pressure on these cities that utilize it to end it, okay, and to also crack down on the fake crime statistics that we know these liberal cities are putting out there to make their cities seem safer than they really are. Take a look.
So I'll start signing the executive orders. To me, this is a very, very big deal. One of the executive orders has to do with cashless bail. That was when the big crime in this country started. And I can tell you who did it, when, but I don't want to do that because others followed pretty quickly. But that was when it happened. Somebody kills somebody, they go in, don't worry about it, no cash, come back in a couple of months, we'll give you a trial. You never see the person again. And, I mean, they kill people and they get out. Cashless bail. They thought it was discriminatory to make people put up money because they just killed 3 people lying on a street. Any street all over the country, cashless bail. We're ending it, but we're starting by ending it in D.C., and that we have the right to do through federalization. Okay, let's go. Could I ask you to say exactly what this is?
Of course. So as you've consistently identified, sir, cashless bail policies are a key driver of the disorder we see on city streets all over America. Catch and release system allows criminals to keep going back out onto the street and reoffending. What this executive order does, it charges your attorney general with identifying jurisdictions all over the country that have cashless bail policies, and then it withholds or revokes federal funds and grants that are flowing to those jurisdictions to ensure that we're only supporting the people who have reasonable common sense policies around crime.
So what area does it cover?
Potentially anywhere that has a cashless bail policy. So some of the largest cities, some of the most left-wing states in America
Almost
have adopted.
all of them, right?
Illinois would be a great example of that, sir.
Oh, they have a great cashless bail. You don't even have to go to court sometimes. No, Illinois, I love that state. It's a great state, but it's run so badly by Pritzker. They threw him out of the family business, and he becomes governor.
We've uncovered, in the process of uncovering, a massive scandal in Washington, D.C. with the doctoring of crime stats. And the Department of Justice, under the Attorney General, is leading the effort to uncover this. But when we ultimately share the results, it will stun you. The extent to which, even though D.C. had the worst crime in America, honestly measured, it dramatically understated how bad it was. There's even accusations that murders and homicides were reported as accidents instead of murders. I mean, this is how severe the manipulation of the crime data has been in this city, and it will all be uncovered and it will all be brought to light. You know, I've had a chance to spend some time, as has everyone here, with the police officers in the city. Members of the public are going up to them and thanking them, just overflowing with gratitude, because for the first time in their lives, they can use the parks, they can walk on the streets. You have people who can walk freely at night without having to worry about being robbed or mugged. They're wearing their watches again. They're wearing jewelry again. They're carrying purses again. People had changed their whole lives in this city for fear of being murdered, mugged, and carjacked. It is a literal statement that President Trump has freed 700,000 people in this city who were living under the rule of criminals and thugs. And the last thing I'll say is that under the efforts of Terry, to my left and many here, what they found also is that the street criminals here in Washington, D.C. were doing business directly with the transnational criminal cartels, the foreign terrorist organizations. So not only was the city being run by these criminal thugs, but they were working with some of the most dangerous terrorist organizations on the planet to traffic weapons and drugs into this city. And what we are uncovering every day is shocking to us, and we look forward to sharing all the results with you. But President Trump, your leadership has uncovered some of the great public safety scandals of our life, and now because of you, people are safe and free for the first time ever in this city.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely sure how you can be against no murders, no homicides, safe cities, safe streets, quiet streets, right? No destruction and chaos. I'm not entirely sure how you can be against that, but apparently that is where the Democrat Party's at in 2025, right? They are for destruction and chaos, okay? Because they're not only upset about the crime crackdown in D.C., they're also upset as they wait to see if the crime crackdown is going to extend to these liberal cities, which is what President Trump has threatened, which is that he's going to crack down in these liberal cities on crime, okay, and on illegal immigration, okay, a combination of both, right, to be honest with you. And mainstream liberal media and these Democrats are panicking. They're in full-blown panic mode. First and foremost, they are in reality denialism mode, which is the mode they get in immediately, okay, when they know that President Trump is winning on an issue, which leads them to ask stupid questions to the president. Like, for example, is he going to use the National Guard on red cities within red states? Right? That is what a reporter asked President Trump, except the red cities are not the crime-ridden cities, right? The most violent cities in the country are not red cities. They're all blue cities.
President, on the National Guard, you've talked a lot about Democratic-run cities and states. Yeah. Would you also consider sending the National Guard into red states and red cities that are also seeing high crime?
Sure, but there aren't that many of them. If you look at the top 25 cities that for crime, just about every one of those cities is run by Democrats. And you know, one of the bad things they did, cashless bail, if you look back on time, when they allowed a murderer out that afternoon, you know, he'd kill somebody and then a couple of hours later he's walking the streets again, oftentimes killing again rapidly. Cashless bail is a disaster. You saw we had a news conference today and that we're wiping it out in D.C., immediately wiping it out. It started in New York, I must tell you, and it's been a horrible thing for crime, especially violent crime. So we're going to end cashless bail, yes. Thank you.
He was asked about cities in red states because the governor is so essential when it comes to activating National Guard, and the highest crime blue cities are actually in red states, and those are not among the ones on his apparent target list, it appears. Can you talk a little bit about what you heard him asked and what he answered there?
Yeah, I think you did a great fact check there yourself. So there are indeed a bunch of cities in red states that are high on national crime rate lists, however you slice the data. And the president likes to blame the Democratic mayors of those cities. That's his right. But just looking at the facts, cities like Memphis, Tennessee, Cleveland, Ohio, Kansas City, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, Houston, Texas, all among the 10 or 15 cities with the highest violent crime rates, all in red states with Republican governors. So who's to blame for that? I think that's subjective and complicated, but it's just not true that there aren't many cities in red states that are high on those terrible lists.
Wow. That was a legendary spin, right? An absolutely legendary spin there from CNN's fact checker, aka propaganda checker, because again, this propagandist on national TV acknowledge that all of these cities are blue cities, but then goes on to say, well, they're in red states, so we really don't know, right? We don't really know if them being blue cities has anything to do with the crime being out of control because they're in red states, right? As if, again, a vast majority of the cities in the top 25 most dangerous cities in the United States of America are blue cities, right? The correlation here, the strong correlation clearly is blue cities, not red states, but blue cities, right? The blue cities within red states tend to be particularly bad because the most radical people in the state tend to be in these blue cities within these states, okay? And unless CNN is arguing for a crackdown from red state governors against blue cities, then they probably should tell the truth, right? They should probably not try to gaslight people on this subject, pretending as if crime is not strictly a problem with Democrat-run cities, because it is, right? It doesn't really have that much to do with Republican governors, okay? Because they're not the ones that are primarily responsible for these liberal cities, right? That, again, are run by Democrats. So, meanwhile, on MSNBC, one of their segments did not go very well at all because a never-Trumper, John Kasich, came on air and he went off script when pressed about how crime is supposed to be down.
Governor, look, you understand very clearly what it means when the National Guard comes into your state, what it means when it comes in to a community. Donald Trump essentially said today that, you know what, not only was he not happy that he wasn't being thanked for this, he suggested that there are people who want a dictator. He says, I'm not a dictator. I'm being accused of being a dictator. But some people may want someone to come in and take control. So I wonder how you see this and what the options are for governors in this case.
Well, I mean, I have to tell you, I have such a different take than what we've just heard. They talk about a manufactured crisis. Have you been in Chicago? Have you been in Baltimore? But my daughter went to school in Chicago. I remember the day she graduated, there were shootings and killings right outside of her building. And in Baltimore, I have friends that go down to Johns Hopkins, get treated for medical conditions. I mean, they are nervous about ever going there. There are parts of Baltimore that he tells me he wouldn't go into. And this is not some right-wing person. This is somebody who wants to be able to go into some of our great cities and be able to be safe. Now, I do think it's important that if you're going to do this, you've got to define the mission. You've got to talk about your authority. And I think one of the earlier guest was saying that, you know, well, maybe there's narrow ways to do it. I agree with that, but that just then says that there are ways to do it. And if I had had a crisis in Cleveland, we thought we were going to have riots, or in Columbus or whatever, I would never have put, you know, the fact that, well, I'm governor, so I would want to work with other people who wanted to help me. And look, what's been happening in Chicago has been terrible. The crime rate is high. The gang problem is real. I tried to get Arnie Duncan, the former education secretary under Obama, to run for mayor. He's out there trying to work to get, you know, to deal with the gang problem. He didn't want to do it. But I think Chicago is a jewel of America. We just cannot let lawlessness and fear dominate these cities. So, yeah, I think we need to know what the mission is. I think we need to know what the authority is. I think we need to know what the length is. But the idea that these cities are somehow fine, oh, I think you're
I don't
just,
think
you're
anybody,
whistling.
I mean, listen,
I heard
I
the
take
word
your point.
manufacturing crisis. This is a manufactured crisis. No, it's not. It is a crisis. There are
Go
people
ahead, Basil.
at
You're
risk in
dying to
these
jump
cities.
in here.
Wow. Pikachu face. You see this CNN? You see this CNN host? That's my face, right? That's exactly how I feel about that segment, okay? That MSNBC host, right, was expecting some BS now. She wanted some BS now. And he didn't give her that BS now. He didn't give her the BS that she was looking for. And yeah, you can tell. MSNBC, they were very uncomfortable when John Kasich went off script, right? When he told the truth, right? The truth that all of these people know, which is that crime is not down. All these people know, they all know these cities are shitholes. They all know that. But they can't say it out loud on national television because they'll get called racist, okay? Which is basically what woke Mayor Brandon Johnson and Al Sharpton, that's what they're calling this crime crackdown, racist.
It's a lot talking about how I've condemned a lot of what was going on in Chicago back in the day and other points. It's not about crime. But when you have this consistent pattern that you're only going after black mayors, now you're going to fight Westmore. I mean, the pattern here is clear, particularly when the data shows that crime is down in these cities.
We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that. And we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down. We cannot return to the same failed strategies that got us here in the first place.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Okay, same old song and dance from Democrats. Racist! Trump cracking down on crime is racist. Throwing black people in jail is racist. Right? Except no mention of all the black lives that have not been lost as a result of the crime crackdown in D.C. Which, could you guys imagine if there was a crime crackdown on all these liberal cities across the country, right? How many black lives would be saved? Who knows? Maybe the black population will start to grow again, right? Maybe that's what will happen. Maybe we can catch up with the Latinos if black people stop killing each other. But unfortunately, again, because of leadership, and black leadership, really, I mean, let's be honest. We can't get these policies in place. We can't get the actions in place in order to save black lives, right? But these people will tell you that they care about black folks. However, again, what they really care about more is the Democrat Party, okay? And speaking of black leadership, we got to talk about Wes Moore, who has also received criticism from President Trump. Wes Moore is the governor of Maryland, okay, where Baltimore is located. And that is also a crime-ridden city that should probably be cleaned up. I mean, it's right next to D.C. Maybe they should go there next, right down the street.
Another city seeing a decline in violent crime as of late is Baltimore. Yet Baltimore is also on Trump's radar.
Baltimore is a horrible, horrible deathbed. It's a deathbed.
He calls Baltimore a deathbed. And yet in the same breath, Trump then went on to tell a story about, this is an incredible story because he says that he met the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, who, by the way, infamously grew up in Baltimore, now the governor of Maryland. So he meets Wes Moore at a football game, an Army-Navy game, and this is what Trump says happens.
And inside of this country, Baltimore is a horrible, horrible deathbed. It's a deathbed. I know Governor Moore said, he wants to take a walk with me. He meant it in a derogatory tone. I said, no, I'm the president of the United States. Clean up your crime and I'll walk with you. But it's tremendous crime. But he was trying to be derogatory. He doesn't have what it takes. But he's trying to be derogatory. And I met him at the Army-Navy game. They said, there's Governor Moore. He'd love to see you. He came over to me. He hugged me, shook my hand. You were there. He said, sir, you're the greatest president of my lifetime. I said, it's really nice that you say that. I'd love you to say it publicly, but I don't think you can do that, so it's okay. But no, sir, you're doing a fantastic job. I want to just shake your hand. Thank you very much, Governor. That was it. And then every time I see him on television, he's knocking the hell out of me. So, but that's all right. That's called politics.
Maybe if he'd gone a little shy of greatest, if he'd retold the story of he said you're doing a good job or something that might be more believable. But here's the thing. That's kind of hard to swallow. And a short time ago, Governor Moore responded to Trump's claims.
I'm a person who takes my integrity very seriously, and I spent the past 6 months before that election campaigning as to why I did not think that he should be the next president of the United States. So when I say that conversation never happened, that imaginary conversation never happened, I mean that conversation never happened.
Moore, Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, all saying no to Trump on using the military in American cities. But their words don't seem to matter.
Yeah, their words don't matter because ultimately, at the end of the day, nobody cares about what they have to say. Now, when it comes to Wes Moore, hey, who knows? I kind of believe that Wes Moore did tell President Trump that he's the greatest president of his lifetime. There is video footage of President Trump and Wes Moore meeting, and Wes Moore seemed to be a big fan.
Mr. President, welcome back to Maryland, sir. Welcome back to Maryland. It's good to see you.
In person, too.
Thank you, sir. Great to see you. Great to see you. And great to have you back here. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we are very, very anxious to be able to work closely with you, and I know the Key Bridge is something that we're specifically. It's going well. I mean, we spoke with Speaker Johnson yesterday.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know. I think Wes Moore might be a fan, right? I think he might be a fan. He might be tap dancing for the white liberal man, right? Oh, we don't like Trump. Oh, I don't want the crime crackdown. But at the same time, on MSNBC, he admitted that Baltimore has been losing a large amount of their population, right? There's been a mass exodus from Baltimore amid the violent crime in the city.
But first, I just want to ask you, just in general, what historically has been Baltimore's greatest challenge? Why has Baltimore had a crime problem over the past 3-4 decades?
Well, I think oftentimes Baltimore's had a neglect problem. You know, and I think about Baltimore used to be a city of 920,000 people. Baltimore is now a city of just under 600,000. In fact, if you look at the past few decades, Baltimore's had one of the most precipitous drops in population that we have seen in our country, with the exception of Cleveland and Detroit.
Yeah, so it is clear to me that President Trump is running circles around the mainstream liberal media and Democrats, because President Trump has now shifted the national conversation to crime, which is something that we should have been talking about for the past 4 years, right? I want you guys to understand. I've been talking about crime, Fox News, you know, conservative outlets, we've all been talking about crime, right? But liberal outlets, Democrats have not been talking about crime. They've been ignoring it. And now we finally have a national conversation about it, right? There's an actual spotlight on these liberal cities and crime. And it's all because of President Trump, right? President Trump playing the media, playing the Democrats, and shifting the conversation. It doesn't matter what it is. Anything that President Trump wants to talk about, the media is like, oh, yeah, we'll talk about that, right? While at the same time, they'll claim, well, this is all a distraction from Epstein. And I'm like, okay, well, first and foremost, you've been distracting us from Epstein for the last 4 years, if that's the case, because you certainly didn't want to talk about Epstein for the past 4 years. But again, my question is, why do you keep falling for it, right? Why is it every conversation that President Trump wants to have, the media falls for every single time, right? And look, in this case, I'm not upset with the media, right? This is certainly a conversation that we should be having. This is certainly to the advantage of Republicans, to the advantage of President Trump, to have a conversation about out-of-control crime in these liberal cities, because it puts a spotlight on just how bad Democrats have done at running these cities over the past 4 to 5 years. Okay, and with Trump cleaning up D.C., that is a roadmap that can be used to clean up these liberal cities. If these governors and these mayors were smart, instead of fighting back, they should do what John Kasich suggested, which is to work with the president. Say, hey, yeah, I'll allow the military to come to my city and to clean it up, right? Yeah, I'll be the mayor that has 0 murders, right? That has no homicides, that city is extremely clean and safe, and people feel great about going out late at night and having fun without worrying about getting shot up and killed and mugged and robbed and raped and all this stuff. Yeah, I would want to be that mayor, right? If I was one of these Democrats. But, you know, again, because Democrats are in bed with the far left, they can't just accept a common sense position of being tough on crime, right? Hey, you know what? Let's just get tough on crime, right? Let's do that, right? That's the one thing that could actually save the Democrat Party. If they got tough on crime, if they actually said, yeah, let's work together, Mr. President, that would actually help Democrats a lot, right? But, you know, hey, at this point, there is no help with the Democrats. The Democrats are just destined for failure due to the fact that they are severely Trump deranged. And again, that puts them in awkward positions, like the position they're in right now, essentially defending the crime, destruction, chaos that everybody knows exists in their city. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black Assertive Perspective. Peace.